Hi, I'm Sydney, and I am a servant of the Almighty God. Continuing the series on recognizing God's omnipotence, this episode is all about nature being the manifestation of God's omnipotence. Now, it sounds like a little jump, but as I have been inspired, right, in humanity's inflection point, this is what it's about. And I'll go through some stuff here that it's amazing, the inspirations that show, that demonstrate these things, right? There is no empirical data, but it's a logical conclusion. So let me get into this because this is really exciting. Because what I have recognized, and you will too, is that much of the things that I have written about in humanity's inflection point, it's already here. It's just a denial of what we are observing. And I don't want to go, I'll go into other things about, when I talk about this like mass hypnotism and all this stuff where people see things, but for some reason they don't want to accept what they see. Check this out. When was the last time you heard science refer to any discovery as part of a random act? Because a lot of things people talk about is like a random evolution, but when is the last time any discovery that you've recognized scientists, there's some major discovery or any kind of discovery, we discover a new plant, a new animal, or a new mechanism within any of these things. When was the last time you heard them talk about it? Random. It's always now about nature or Mother Nature. So what has gone is the tacit recognition that there is an intelligence, that all these things are designed intelligently. We see patterns. It's kind of like when we go out someplace and we see, scientists go out and they see, here, there's a random something out here, just all random stuff. But what science is revealing to us, that there are patterns with everything. We recognize that everything is connected. And so just as if we go out and, it's all just dirt and stuff. But if we see walls, we see, streets, we see things are lined up, we know that these things were some intelligence was involved in laying these things out. And this is what science is recognizing. Every discovery, DNA, stem cells, we go out and we look at even the relationship between plants and animals, what we eat, we are seeing patterns. When we look at, animals out in like the polar bear, right? The polar bear, we found out that, its fur it's hollow, because we know that air is a very good insulator. Like, I remember telling some kids, I was doing some robotics, teaching kids robotics, and telling them there is no such thing as a warm jacket if there isn't something that plugs into it or providing power in that jacket to heat the jacket. We give off heat all the time. It's why we are comfortable not at 98.6 or 90 something degrees, but in the 80s or 70s, some people even lower, because we need to give off heat all the time. And so anything that traps that heat, so we give off some and keeps enough around us so that it's within that range that keeps us warm. But if we had something that keeps us at 98, we would be, we would be really uncomfortable. So we need to give off heat. Well, similarly, nature, the manifestation of God's omnipotence, has enabled these animals that live in the really cold to have hollow fur. So it traps air. So it assists in their insulation. So that if they're in a warm place where they give off so much heat, but so much is trapped, that maintains their body temperature. I like to talk about things like hibernation. We could not, none of us, No scientist today could train an animal to live for 5 months with no food, right? We know that, yeah, even if we can sustain life with someone in a coma, but we need to feed them. We can't take any animal and train it to hibernate. We couldn't train an animal to do echolocation. So these are some of the processes that obviously we now hear nature. So we recognize the intelligence. Nature has designed these things. So, but science now has moved from random to Mother Nature. Mother Nature is very intelligent. Nature designs things that amazes us. We now need to follow the lead of nature. But we cannot accept that intelligence that we observe. We observe the intelligence all around us. That nature is coming from a source. Now, we don't know if it's one source or, like we had a lot of things with, monotheism or other angels and other gods that all work together, because we look at an ecosystem and we see all these, various design, real, sometimes seeming like, how does one thing, have a skeleton on the inside, some have a skeleton on the outside, or, some have no skeleton, octopus, and they have intelligence. We see memory, like I talk about, these animals, like the corolla spider and all these things that know how to use quartz. We see animals we see real intelligence in the design. So science has moved from random, because you listen, how many times will you hear? You hear nature, 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 nature. And what we see, what we can observe, where we can recognize, we must recognize, is that science, which likes, we like to close the loop. We want empirical data, and when we can't get it, we recognize, okay, we're not there yet, right? It's just like with everything. I mean, we look at, the things that we can use now, silicon and light, and we understand the understanding of these forces of nature, right? And when I talk about when they say the laws of nature, I say the rules of creation. That intelligence created rules, and those rules are being revealed to us. And you know what the real issue right now is? Besides science not accepting that we are part of an intelligent design, which they attribute to nature, because of things like psychiatry, which has done a great job of understanding human nature, right? Again, this nature, the way we were designed, understanding how our brains works, except for disassociating and disallowing any significance to the spiritual component. Science is recognizing, yes, there is that intelligent, so the knowledge is already there. The part that is missing is, unfortunately, religion. Religion is still, all the major religions, it seems, to be focused on what occurred in the past. When religions recognize nature is the manifestation of God's omnipotence, all the design, this beautiful design that enables all these ecosystems to work beautifully, when religions focus on that, that's what their inspiration for humanity's inflection point. Because then they recognize nature, whenever we hear nature, the manifestation of God's omnipotence, the living God. It is why religion will then start turning around that inflection point, where religions will start recognizing we all exist in the presence of the living God. The entire concept of the spiritual, everlasting. So we don't need to be constantly and only focused on 2,000 years ago, several hundred years ago. We need to recognize. It's why every time we worship, right? Because I am all about science, but I recognize that there are things that we can't fully understand as yet. We don't understand the rules. Those, when I talk about, in the hypothesis that I put out, because those rules aren't yet discovered, the fact that we can observe, because gravity was always there until we didn't understand that force, because we still don't really fully understand gravity, because like light and sound we can manipulate. We can't manipulate gravity, which should move all our travels and all of these things. Maybe space travel become really, a thing just like that. If we learn enough to manipulate gravity, we don't know, maybe 50 years, 5,000 years, because that would change. Because think about light. We can break light down. We can actually go from one form of matter to another, right? We can create energy from matter. That E equal to mc squared, Einstein formula. We can do a lot of these things because we understand them. We can create different wavelengths, different colors. We can create different songs. Capturing this here is an example. We capture it, we digitize it, and then what you're seeing is it's now converted back from digital back to the images and the sound that you hear. Gravity, we're not there yet. Similarly with nature, the manifestation of God's omnipotence, we recognize it. We recognize the intelligence science has. Religions are still focused on what occurred 2,000 years ago, several hundred years ago. All religions, whether it's Buddhism or Jewish faith or the Muslim faith, the Christian faith, so they're all interested in the stories, whereas He's revealing to us the manifestation of God's omnipotence. It's right here. Science has gone away from random to, you will hear it every time there's a discovery. Nature has. Nature is the manifestation of God's omnipotence, because we see the intelligence. And when religions wake up, so it's all here now. The things, the inspiration that had me write humanity's inflection point, it's all here now. I think religion is really behind the curve. It's still taking us into this divisive pattern that science is revealing that. So science continues to unite us. Yes, computers, phones, all of these things, medicine, all unite us. It does not say, well, because you're a Muslim or Hindu or Jewish or Christian or whatever religion, it does not divide us and says that we are the chosen, and so we can break the commandments. When we recognize that nature is the manifestation of God's omnipotence, it unites all religions, because we live today. These revelations are being made today. We are living in nature. So all of this, pick up a copy, okay? Because these inspirations that's funneling this, we just need to coalesce. We need people to recognize, when I talk about, Haley, honesty, altruism, love and inclusion, that's all part of nature's intent, that we can be the ones that nurture. We can be the ones that be good stewards to God's creations. And so, yes, we have not yet recognized ways to actually feel and measure. Right? Science hasn't gotten there with the spiritual as yet, but we have not invested anything, because we have gone through psychiatry to, there is no spiritual, and it serves demonic purposes. Because I'll tell you something again, this is from my inspiration. There are two things that demons would not admit. They would not admit to the Creator, the Almighty God, and they will not admit to obeying the commandments. They will admit to everything else. And so nature, right? So the forces that want us to stray from recognizing Creator say, no, it's just nature. And he said, but you see, all this intelligence, that's nature. Well, what is nature? And we need to get into nature is the manifestation of God's omnipotence. All these wonderful things, all these wonderful interactions and interdependence that we see, it was designed by our Creator. So again, let me reiterate as I try to close this out here. Nature is the manifestation of God's omnipotence, and religions need to recognize that. These are the inspirations that fundamentally in humanity's inflection point. When religions because science already has. Just listen to whatever you hear as scientific discovery, what you hear, nature. Nature, we need to recognize that nature is the manifestation of God's omnipotence, and we will be on the path to humanity's inflection point from the divisiveness that has torn us apart, that has now, it seems like it's okay to murder, to almost commit genocide on people, because certain people are saying that, well, we are the... No, just like science unites us, and we need to get the word out. We need to get religions on board to recognize that nature is the manifestation of God's omnipotence, and that we all exist in the presence of the living God. The spiritual is everlasting. It is forever. We do not need to look back to 2,000 or hundreds of years ago. We have to recognize that today, as I speak today, I am in the presence. Every rabbi, cleric, every pastor, preacher must recognize that and start that we are on that path. Once we get, you and I, we educate others that nature is, and when we recognize that nature is the manifestation of God's omnipotence, we recognize the spiritually, we are in His presence today. And that is what's going to lead. I don't know if it's going to take 50 years, 500 years, but I feel great because we are on that path. We just need to close that loop. So science is recognizing it. Science does not talk about random anymore. Religions need to also recognize and claim basically the definition, whatever, use this. Nature is the manifestation of God's omnipotence. Nature is God's methods revealed to us. The laws of nature, the rules of creation, all of these things, we need to get the religious side now to wake up to these. They really need to wake up. And so each one of us can play a part in that, getting us on the path to humanity's inflection point. I want to thank you for taking the time, and it's not a coincidence that you encountered this. It's a series of decisions that can assist all of us to move on this wonderful path that God intended. Thank you again, and until next time, may God bless.